Hello, Maverick fans. Welcome to another edition of the Mavpuckcast. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. I am Jason.
And I am John, and I'm just happy to be here.
Thankfully, we are able to watch hockey and do this podcast and talk about a game to watch. That was an interesting one.
Yeah, that was a fun one. You and I weren't sure in our predictions in the previous episode how this game was going to go. I think you predicted a 5-2 loss for UNO.
I
Bridget was telling me during the game that I had picked a 2-2 tie that was going to stay tied through the 3-on-3 overtime period and go to a shootout, and UNO would lose the shootout. And neither of those two scenarios happened, but UNO did get
the exact opposite of both of those situations, basically.
you and I both did predict UNO would get 2 goals, though, which they did tonight.
They did. And the nice thing was that Austin Roden was in net and didn't allow any goals behind him. So,
Yeah, made 41 saves on the night. That was a really good outing. After the game against Miami, after that loss, you kind of anticipated that the coaching staff might shake things up a little bit, and they certainly did. And one of the things that you'll often see teams do is they'll switch up the player in net. Now, I will say Isaiah Seville had a good game in the previous game against Miami, but sometimes the way that the dynamic works is if you put in a new goaltender, sometimes it influences the play in front of the goaltender. And I think that happened tonight. Although one of the things I will say is that Austin Roden, as we mentioned, 41 shots. That's not an insignificant number of shots, and there were a lot of grade A opportunities for St. Cloud tonight.
yeah, he made some amazing saves. So this was not a routine shutout for him. He earned every bit of it for sure. And, humbled everything else. We talked about the issues we had against Miami last night. Uh, just finding offense and finding chemistry between the forwards. And Coach went and put Weiss and Ward back on a line together, moved Conley off of there, put him back with Abate. Um, didn't he move? He moved Sundberg around too. So really kind of shaking things up, putting a little bit of new blood on each line. Like I had said in the past podcast, the reasoning a lot of times between that is that you have that air of familiarity with your other line mates anymore, and so you start to simplify your game, and you start to play heads up hockey more. It's just a natural thing that happens when you're playing with new people, and so it certainly seemed to work. The guys seemed to really be looking for opportunities, have a little bit more of a desire to go net front, I think. The one thing I think that we still struggle with, the power play, just it's not bad. It's also really not that good.
No, our penalty kill, when you're looking at special teams, our penalty kill really is our strength this season. Our power play has been a bit suspect so far. And I will add, we did see 2 new defensemen tonight. We saw Alex Waugh and we saw Jake Harrison. And I thought both of them played well tonight. It was nice to have some fresh faces in there, some fresh legs on the ice. I thought that was good for the team. But you're right. They shook up the lines a little bit, which for Mike Gabinet, that was probably a lot,
Yeah, that was
But
probably a lot.
but it did. It kind of changed the chemistry out there on the ice, and I was impressed with how they looked. Certainly in the first 2 periods, I thought they looked solid. The third period was a tough period. That was the kind of game where if one of those pucks goes in the net for St. Cloud, we could be having a different discussion right now. But ultimately, the team played well. They were blocking shots. I thought overall they played really smart hockey tonight, and they rebounded. But as you and I've talked about before, this is one of those things where they do get up for the good opponents, the opponents that they've struggled against, and St. Cloud's one of those teams that we haven't had a lot of success against the last few years.
Yeah, but they're a good team, and so it does seem like we bring our A game they need to find a way to bring their A game against the teams that are C and D levels, but we'll figure it out eventually, right?
Well, yeah, and as Chris Bain pointed out on my message board, a lot of people remember during the WCHA years that we had before the formation of the NCHC that one of the teams we struggled against time and time again was Bemidji State, a team that the trappers from northern Minnesota. They would clog things up in the neutral zone, and we really struggled against that team, despite the fact that I think we had more talent than that team. We struggled, year after year. A couple instances in the WCHA postseason play. So it is possible that Miami will be a team that has our number going forward. I don't know if this is just a team that we don't match up particularly well against, but we won't see them again. I don't think we're going to see them again this season, right? We've played Miami twice in this, and we won't see them in the second half of the season. So we'll have to wait until 2021-22 to see them again.
It seems, I think, like teams always seem to have those teams that are just perennial bubble busters, right?
Right.
Like I remember back in the 90s, someone had told me that like Denver was ranked number 1 5 times the week before going to Lake State. And 5 out of 5 times they lost to Lake State. And it was just like this crazy thing. So he was all, leading into the season, he was like, look, this week on the calendar, we're going out to Lake State, and insisting that we are going to be the number 1 team before then will not be the number 1 team after that. So,
Exactly.
I can feel for that.
Yeah, and UNO back during their CCHA days, our travel partner was University of Alaska Fairbanks, and we could not get a win in Fairbanks for the life of us, despite the fact that we played there more than any other team in the conference did, other than Fairbanks. It was a struggle for us year in, year out. It was just one of those things, like you said, sort of an Achilles heel against a team that you, on paper, you should be able to beat, but you don't for whatever reason. So maybe Miami's that new team. We'll have to see going forward. But I was excited. I was glad to get a good win and excited for the players to get that 2-0 shutout. I wasn't sure that was going to hold there at the end down the stretch, but the guys put it together and got it done.
Yeah, outshot every period, especially that third. 18-3 is just. You knew that St. Cloud was going to push, but that's a little excessive. Yeah. We need to find a better way when we know teams are going to make a push to slip the puck past the D, find that soft spot on the second level, and do a better job of transitioning. There were a few times we got some good opportunities there. I know Weiss and Ward came in on one in the third. So, the guys, they found it every once in a while, but a little bit more consistency with that. And, we're a transition team right now. We're not really that much of a puck possession. So that's going to hurt us in these close games, third period. So we need to find a way to take the play over, control the pace a little bit more, and make it a little bit easier to inch out.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that I would say is we've talked about this. This was one of those kind of low scoring, close games, and UNO oftentimes in recent seasons has struggled in those games. So, credit where credit is due. They were able to hold on, get the shutout, and I thought that was great. We talk about how different players have been scoring this season, and the first goal of the night was Kirby Proctor.
Yeah. It was nice shot from the point. I didn't think it was his. I thought someone tipped it in front, but apparently it was the St. Cloud player that got a stick on
Well,
it.
yeah, it looked.
Thank you.
I'm with you. It looked like anytime you have anytime you have those shots from the point, you always wonder, especially when there's people down there in the slot. You do wonder if somebody got a stick on that, and I wondered that, but I'm always waiting to be corrected on Twitter when we post who scored the goal. No, it wasn't him. Somebody got a stick. Well, I can't tell. I'm watching on my TV. I'm not there, so yeah. And then the second goal of the night came in the second period, and that was Tyler Weiss.
It was, and that was another tip in front of the net, and he did a really good job tonight of finding some of those soft areas in the zone. I think I suspect from the post game comments that Coach made that there was probably a little talking to after the Miami game about his play, because I didn't think it was his best game. Sounds like the coach didn't think it was his best game, and he came back out and said, I can work my way. I can get out of this. Don't make it a slump type of situation, and so he did good.
Yeah, he sure did do well, and so that was exciting for him and exciting for Kirby Proctor. Because again, we talk about this. It's kind of neat to see different players having success offensively, and putting pucks on net and scoring. And so it's that nice kind of scoring by committee thing that UNO has going right now, and I like that. I like that as opposed to kind of one, go-to guy, a David Pope type of guy who is your get the puck to Pope and let him see what he can do, or an Austin Ortega type of guy. So, yeah, happy to see that. Yeah.
It was funny because this is one of those games where, like, neither of the goals that go in are that flashy. I mean, they're kind of those gritty. They're
Yep.
shots from the point that get tipped, and those types of things. And some people might mistake that for a game that wasn't very exciting offensively, but gosh, there were some great plays that I still can't believe didn't go.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Ward's the
Yep.
split seam pass from Weiss to Ward on the power play was like OMG, and yet I don't know how the goalie gets across and makes a save
was that
on him, but
was that the goal where Ward kind of hit it either off of the back of his blocker pad or the back of his skate, and then it hit the opposite post, and you're thinking that thing should carry him in, and it didn't. It just kind of dinked off. Or was that's the one. Okay.
One. Yeah, the first one was on the power play, and that was one where the goaltender pushed across and was able to actually get the save. And I mean, Ward was like, he knew that he had a golden opportunity there.
I think that was in the first. I think that was in the first, the one that you're talking about. And he had a great look at that. He was sitting right. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Weiss put it between two of the defenders, cross the seam, and you're just thinking, I mean, that's a golden goal kind of thing there. Like that's as a defender on the power play, like there's a few things that you just absolutely cannot let happen, and that any sort of pass across the seam you can't. Like you just can't. And I thought for sure he had it, and just like, oh my gosh. And then the one you were talking about, he gets behind the net and he throws it out in front, goes off the back of the goaltender's skate and then off the far post. And they took a look at it, but it did not cross the line.
Yeah, that was a wild, pool shot there for sure. There was one other player that had a breakaway
and then
opportunity. Who was that guy? I'm looking. Jason's like, why did you bring this up? Who?
I'm trying to remember. Which period? Do you remember?
No, I don't. It was. Who had that? I don't know.
Was it Sundberg?
I have no idea. People are going to be yelling. People are going to be yelling at their phones, yelling at their iPads. And I think did I make the comments? Am I confusing tonight's game with last night's game? I don't know. I made the comment. I think I texted to you. I think I'm like, he almost was, player of the game right there. Or was that last night? I don't know. The things are melding together. So I could be wrong on that. But I thought there was somebody who had, it was Prokop. It was Prokop because I found the text and I said Prokop was about to be a player of the game. And it just didn't go in because I can't remember. I think maybe there was a turnover. Can't remember. Maybe a neutral zone turnover.
Doesn't he take his penalty right after that?
It's very possible. I don't know. So Noah Prokop almost had a golden opportunity there on that breakaway, and I can't remember if that was first or second period. It was early in the game, for sure. So,
yeah. Well, and then there was the video review, and that's the one I think it was Sundberg that makes the power move to the net, and the puck is in the goalie's knees, basically, but he slides backwards into the net, and there was this long discussion about the rule that I don't know how many fans would actually know this, but if the puck is underneath the goaltender and the goaltender's pushed into the net, if it's his fault or his teammate's fault, it's a goal. But if the opposing team pushes him in, it's no goal.
Could you tell? Obviously, we didn't get a lot of replay action on that. Could you tell who pushed him into the net? I'm assuming we did. Let me ask you this question. Yeah, it was hard to tell because I thought it looked like a black jersey kind of backed into him. But again, were we responsible for that black jersey going into him? Again, like I said, this isn't the NFL. We're not getting.
Yeah, I just don't see them overturning it at that point in time. Like, that's one of those, and I know friends who are big football fans say this too, but that's one of those that there's just not going to be enough video evidence to tell you to do something different. So whatever you did, it's what you're going to go with. And in this case, the referee behind the net clearly makes the no goal signal. So he was of the mindset that,
and I was fine with that. I wasn't yelling at the TV.
Yeah. So third period, there's not really much to talk about in the third period. The one play that just stands out to me was Conley chipping the puck off the boards with the empty net, and somehow the St. Cloud's player dives to prevent the puck from crossing the goal line, and it's like,
oh, I know,
that was close.
And that was a good play by the St. Cloud player. Was that Perbix who had that? I think he just kind of puts his stick out there because that puck was going. That puck was going in. Yeah.
Oh, it was in the net. Yeah. It had the speed in the line for sure. There was no doubt about it. And
yep, he sure did.
Swept it right away. So yeah, it was a great play for him. Like,
that was Nick
play, but. And then Roden makes a couple great saves on that. I say not really man advantage, but with the goaltender pulled.
Yeah, that was
5 situation, and
that was a good performance for him. And that was Nick Perbix who made the save, who played for the Omaha Lancers in the USHL. So, I guess we should be much more familiar with him than we are, Jason. We don't care. We don't care if they don't have Omaha on the jersey. We do not care. So,
in a year when he decides to be transferred to Omaha, then I'll start caring again. Someone will point out this podcast.
That's right. We have
wave it over my head.
We have an interesting history with players from other teams. So yeah. That's exactly.
Who scores goals only when they come to town?
Yeah, we're not naming any names, but I think people know who we're talking about. So,
It depends on how many podcasts they've listened to. So if you want to know if you want in on this inside joke,
Yeah,
you're gonna need to go back
how many
to
how
season
many hours
one,
of this podcast did we say
and
we'd done? Like
play catch up.
87 hours. You got to go back. You got to go back and experience it all. Experience the past 2.5 seasons through the eyes of Jason and I. So, yes, we shall.
So shall we pick a player of the game?
Should you want me to pick? No, I'll go first.
Do you want me to go first, or which one of us?
Well, yeah, you know who I'm picking.
I mean, there's got to be an obvious one.
I'm picking Austin Roden. I haven't picked a goalie yet. I was close to picking Isaiah Seville last night. It was hard for me to want to do that with a loss, despite the fact that he played a solid game last night. But Austin Roden coming off the bench, stopping 41 shots tonight. That's a performance worthy of player of the game. So I've got to give it to him. That's always tough to be the guy who's not the regular starter, who's not the guy that is in net night in, night out. So he took advantage of the opportunity that he had tonight, and he played really well. And so congratulations to Austin Roden on getting the shutout.
So now I have to take.
That's why I jumped in there, dude.
Of picking one of the other guys because, jeez, that's all. There were a lot of good plays out on the ice. I would say this is probably one of the better games we've seen from Ward. I think that we've said for a while, for a few games here at least, that he needed to perform better. We needed more production out of him. And even though he doesn't get a goal, I think that he had some of the best opportunities. I like him on a line with Weiss. So maybe we get to keep that together. That would be kind of nice, but we do need some production out of him. And
as we talked about just a little bit ago, he had 2 grade A opportunities tonight, and we're rooting for him. One of our favorite players on the roster for sure, and one of the most important players on our roster the past couple seasons. So hopefully he'll get a little puck luck here and get some of those to drop. And if he does, I think that'll prime the pump and open things up. Very talented player, and I think that's a good pick. I like that pick. It's an unconventional pick. It's not the obvious pick. I took the obvious pick, I think, tonight. And you did. Yeah.
Well, I mean, one of us had to. Like, the fact is if you didn't say it, I was going to have to say it because there's no way we could let it, after that performance, we could let it go down.
Yeah, and good performances, too, by the guys that, came in fresh in the lineup. Alex Waugh and Jake Harrison was an exciting player to see. We hadn't gotten to see him yet. He looks like he's going to be a good one, too. So a lot of exciting young guys on the roster, and it's going to be exciting to watch the next few games here of the NCHC pod for UNO. We only have 3 pod games left. And I'm kind of sad because we're not going to see these teams that are east of the Missouri River after, well, I don't know. Grand Forks might be east of the Missouri River. I don't know. I don't have Google Maps up. But regardless, what I'm saying here is we're not going to see the eastern part. We're not going to see Duluth, St. Cloud, Western, or Miami after this pod is over. And I'm kind of sad about that. That was the last time we saw, we're going to see St. Cloud State this season. So, so we've got 3 more games coming up. The next one is Wednesday, so we get a little bit of a break here. I know Jason and I are looking forward to getting a little break here from the podcast against Minnesota Duluth. Minnesota Duluth is one of the good-looking teams in the conference this year. Jason and I didn't do our preseason national champion pick because we had no idea who was actually going to be playing hockey this season. As Jason's well aware, I pick Duluth every season, and then Jason jinxed some, other team from, the Big Ten or Hockey East or something like that. But if I had picked, I would have picked Duluth again because that's tradition. So.
I'm just making sure that we keep the
that would be great to
keep
see.
the championship
So
with the NCHC. Then.
We've got Miami now. Miami, or not Miami. We don't have Miami. Miami was yesterday. We're not playing Miami anymore. We've got Minnesota Duluth Wednesday. A team. The very first game of the pod for us. We lost 3-5.
Afternoon.
Duluth's looked good so far, but they just lost to Colorado College.
They did. That was a shocker for sure. So, and they'll be rested as well. They don't have a game on Tuesday, so that should be a bit of a challenge.
No, I'll let you make the pick first. I'm still
thinking about it. You gonna make a pick now? I am gonna say that. I'm going to go out of limb and say that UNO pulls a stunner.
Okay, 3-2 pick. Going to be a close. Who's going to get the game winner, Jason? Would you like to predict that too while we're here? Might as well. Let's just...
Might as well. Let's see here.
Nolan Sullivan.
Who do I want?
Yeah.
Oh, Sullivan.
I'd like to see that happen.
Sully's going to
It's going to be late. It's going to be with 52 seconds left or something like that in the third. Put it in. The fans will rejoice.
I still remember. It'll be like not. I know everyone's gonna get the comment section ready for this one. When the NHL was doing their bubble hockey, and Nazem Kadri scores with like 0.1 seconds left on the clock, and I'm like, that was so awesome. As a fan, that was just, I was over the moon on that. And
it'd be fantastic. It'd be pretty
cool if
I'm gonna do something different here because I think the teams are getting tired. They're worn out. They've been playing a lot of hockey here. I'm worn out just watching them. I don't know how these guys do this. So I'm gonna say we're gonna have I think it's time to just have one of these open it up kind of barn burner games where defense goes out the door and people just, score at will. So I'm going to say UNO wins 7-5. 7-5 in just a barn burner of a game. 12 goals are going to be scored. It's going to be a highly entertaining game. It's a different time of day. UNO's been playing a lot of games later in the evening. This is going to be an afternoon game, as you mentioned. So, 7-5. We're going to end. Who am I going to say gets the game winner? I don't know. Should I pick somebody? Let's pick someone here. I'm going to say that.
You made me pick someone.
See, I probably need to pick somebody who I figure is going to be in the lineup. I'm going to say that the game winner is one of the defensemen, that the game winner is going to be Brandon Scanlon. He will get the 6th goal in that game, and then the 7th goal will be an empty netter.
Okay.
We're just gonna do that. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, we haven't really seen.
Right.
We've seen a lot of goals, but they're usually in blowout wins. UNO put up 10. It's that kind of thing. So it would be interesting to see
UNO has done a solid job of keeping their opponents from scoring. 2 games. Their first game against Duluth, they gave up 5, and then their first game against St. Cloud, they gave up 5. But the rest of the games, they gave up 2, they gave up 1, they gave up 1. They lost last night to Miami 1-0, and they shut out St. Cloud. So defensively, the team is playing really well, and I'm sure Mike Gabinet would like for them to keep playing well. But I'm saying 7-5, so we're blowing this sucker open. So,
and UNO's in a good position. I think it's something we talked about prior to the Miami game. It's kind of the unfortunate thing sitting here now, thinking if only they could have found a way to get a point or two out of that Miami game. I mean, we are sitting, UNO sits in fourth place currently. We are 1 point behind St. Cloud and North Dakota, and we're 4 points ahead of Denver. So you've got a tiny bit of breathing room, mostly just because of the struggles that Denver had when they started the pod hockey. But a tiny bit of breathing room there, and you're in striking distance to St. Cloud and North Dakota, and had we found a way against Miami,
it's important for them to take advantage
sitting in
of
second
as
place
many of
right
these
now.
opportunities as they can because of the truncated schedules. There isn't going to be a lot of games to make up points in the second half of the season. And I know people are just happy to be playing hockey and they're not really worried about postseason or standings or anything like that. But I figure while you're here, I'd love to see the team, make a run at finishing in the top half of the conference, because that hasn't happened, for a long time for this team. So take advantage of those opportunities. They put themselves in a good position so far, and they just need to keep playing as well as they've played during this pod. And I think good things can happen for sure. They are looking good so far.
They're looking good so far.
Yeah. And Jason's looking at me like, John, you got anything else? I have one more thing. And this is a follow-up from when Jason and I were talking about overtime.
I got nothing else, man.
And everybody crucified us online for it. As is the case with the new 3-on-3 overtime, we don't have 5-on-5 overtime this year. We've got a 5-minute 3-on-3 period. That if a team scores a goal in that 3-on-3, it goes in the record books as being a win. However, Jason had pointed out, he had made the comment, he was talking about pairwise, RPI, that type of stuff, that it didn't count as a win. Now, I had not paid any attention to the pairwise this year because they're not using the pairwise since it's not a regular season. Some of the teams have opted not to play. There's no interconference play right now. They didn't do it. But as College Hockey News pointed out today, and I wanted to point this out so that we could let everybody know that Jason was right. As College Hockey News pointed out today, they said a big storyline this year is public perception of OT wins versus what they actually mean and how the committee feels about them. Committee voted to make OT wins mean little more than a tie in the pairwise, but no one is going to act like that, and pairwise is out the window this year. So for those who don't understand the pairwise rankings, and Jason and I won't get into that because that'd be another 82 minutes of a conversation on the mathematical formula. It's very much simple math. They try to take the guesswork and the human element out of it. With the 3-on-3 overtime, as far as the structural formula that the NCAA committee uses to determine teams, which is replicated by the pairwise rankings that you'll see analyzed online, a 3-on-3 tie, if a game goes to a 3-on-3 overtime, regardless of whether your team wins in that or not, for the ranking purposes as far as the pairwise goes, that essentially counts as a tie. Even if you win in that 3-on-3 overtime, or even if your opponent wins, because it's 3-on-3, they're not weighting it like a win. So, Jason, you were correct on that. I think. I don't know. People are I thought that was interesting because I think I had mentioned in that podcast, I'm like, I don't know what they're doing as far as the pairwise and the RPI and all of that. So it's very interesting. What do you think of this 3-on-3 concept?
I've always said that college hockey should consider itself more of a development league. And, you never want them, and I don't want them to be, a farmed club for some, NHL team where it's a pipeline, through the system. But you've got to look at it, these are student athletes. At least some of them need to be prepared for the next level and have aspirations and the talent to be on an NHL club. And to do that, you have to prepare them for that. And, playing 5-on-5 overtimes and, when that first started, there was one league, I don't remember which league it was, that was doing 4-on-4s when the NHL was doing 3-on-3s. And I just think that they should just follow whatever the NHL does, surely for the fact that it gives these kids some experience at that situation. So if they are able to make that leap to the next level, they have that experience. They know what they're up against. And so I think that's good. Going to a shootout after that, just not a. I'm a bit of a purist,
Well,
so
and for the fans who aren't that educated,
but it's hard to
when
get behind. And
UNO wins in a shootout or UNO loses in a shootout, they interpret that as winning or losing the game, and then you try to explain to them that no, they didn't really lose. It's just for the extra point, and when you're telling somebody that, their eyes just glaze over, and it's exciting while you're watching it, but it just creates a lot of just confusion. And so I know.
Right.
And when I saw College Hockey News post the pairwise thing, I'm like, well, that adds another level of kind of confusion to the whole thing too, because somebody could get really excited if you win in the 3-on-3 overtime period, but if it's the end of the season and you're really getting down to the nitty-gritty of the pairwise rankings, and you're like, well, yeah, they won, but it doesn't really count as a win in the the pairwise rankings that they use to determine teams. It's just I don't like to have to explain that kind of trivia to people, Jason. So yeah. But anyway, interesting tidbit, and I thought I would do a follow-up on that because I'm trying to do follow-ups on things this year, if at all possible. So, okay, so Jason and I have a couple days off. Jason's very excited about this. These late games are tough. These late games make doing this podcast tough. So. Yeah, I'm going to be happy not to do that either.
At like
so
11 o'clock at night, right?
Until next time, go Mavs.
Go Mavs.